Hello, folks. Today we're going to do some heist item price speculation. What items are going to the moon in 3.25 in heist?
Manhorn? Stock market.
Now, there's a lot of changes in the patch notes. There's been big, massive meta shifts, and I think that there's a lot of these items that you can get from the Curios and blueprints that are going to drastically increase in value. So we're going to take a look at those today. Disclaimer before we begin, nobody knows what the price of these things are going to be next league. This is just my best guess based off of what I've seen in past leagues. And the other thing to think about here too is when you go and run a heist, you only get one choice at the end. Oftentimes you're under pressure. Maybe you set off the alarm and you have to have a small amount of time, or maybe it's just you don't want to get killed off screen while you're alt tabbed or whatever. So it's sometimes a good idea to have an idea of what kinds of items might be valuable before you're going into the heist. So let's take a look at some of these. What items are going to increase in value in the new League Settlers of Kalguur? First one and most obvious one is Replica Badge of the Brotherhood. This item is definitely going to the moon, okay? This is because endurance charges were pretty heavily buffed, and Replica Badge of the Brotherhood gives you max endurance charges equal to your max frenzies. This means you can very easily get 7 frenzy charges that turn into 7 endurance charges with very low investment. That's, 3 normally get, 3 from the tree. Maybe you anoint one of the ones in the tree so you don't even have to path, and then you get, like, I don't know, Dark Rays or something like that. That's 7 charges times 4 mitigation of each elemental and physical. That's 28% mitigation. That's a pretty big deal, and that's going to make this item go absolutely to the moon. And then there's a +1 maximum fortification per endurance charge, which is just, a cherry on the cake. This is a best in slot for many builds now, without a doubt. It's very specific to Heist. You can only get it in Heist, and it's very rare. I was running Heist all last league. I only had like 2 or 3 of these total drop, so pretty rare. Previously, the price was around 1 to 2 div. I think I sold one that had like a decent roll for 2 div. I'm speculating the price on this thing is going to the absolute moon. I think it's going to go 20 to 30 div. I think 20 might even be like a conservative guess, to be honest with you. This thing could be like Mage Blood level. And then the other thing too is because not many people run Heist, and there's going to be a lot more builds that want to run this kind of thing. You might see a supply crunch on something like Badge of the Brotherhood. I feel like out of all of the items, this one is probably going to be the biggest increase. That's why I put this one at the beginning. All right, Replica Alberon's Warpath. I think this thing is gaining decent value as well. This is another one that started off with decent value. Why do I think this is going to increase in value? Well, number one, melee builds have been buffed.
They want ratings. I can get 10 points for his biceps alone. Hello.
The bottom left skill tree in general has been buffed, and that's the place that usually goes with one of these. And damage effectiveness of melee skills has been buffed. And that specifically is a buff to any item that gives you flat damage. If you have like more scaling of that damage, well, of course, that's a big buff to that item. So Replica Alberon's is going to be a lot stronger this league than it was last league. Last league was I was selling them between 7 and 15 divines, depending on the time of the league. This one ranged a lot, actually. And so I expect that the price will go somewhere in the 10 to 20 range. I think it'll be more expensive than last league, but maybe 15 is the top end. Maybe it'll only just get up to 15, but I think for sure it will get up to 15 divines. Replica Dreamfeather. All right, this is a funny one because this one is actually pretty common. It drops a lot. I dropped probably about like 20 or 30 of these last league. They almost always sell for around 30C, or they did last league anyway. Why do I think that this is going to be good this league? Well, the base armor on items has been buffed, which means that the entry point for getting into Replica Dreamfeather builds is going to be a little bit easier now, I think. I've also seen some very large POBs using this item, and a lot of the armor stackers are using this. In fact, I think all the armor stackers are using this item. So, if you're doing like a big armor stack character, and mind you, armor is a lot more powerful now than it was last league because, it's your main line of defense against Fizz instead of conversion, which we had last league. This does make a lot of sense. If you're going to stack armor, pick up Replica Dreamfeather, suddenly you're doing a lot of damage. I've seen builds on POB like posted recently with like 24 to like 30 million DPS with like literally 1.3 or 4 million armor. Like absolutely bananas builds. And I speculate that the price will probably be in the realm of 1 to 2 div. Maybe more for like a really perfect roll because there's actually a pretty big range. And the flat damage does matter a lot on this because you don't get a lot of flat damage. You have to like build that from other sources. So any little bit of flat damage that you can get is actually a big deal. So it scales from 40 to 65 and 70 to 100. So that's the roll that matters the most. And of course, it has a 5 to 10 attack speed range, which is actually again a pretty decent range. So on the top end, you could probably be looking for closer to 2 div. Maybe on the lower end, I don't know, 40C to 1 div, somewhere in that range is what I'm thinking is probably going to be in the middle of the league. All right, Replica Farrul's Fur. This thing's going to the moon too. The reason I think that this item is going to increase in value is because it pairs with Badge of the Brotherhood, and it's OP on Trickster. So let me explain here. What Replica Farrul's Fur does is it makes you gain up to your maximum number of Frenzy and Endurance charges when you gain Cat's Agility, okay? So if you have any amount of increased charge duration, then you can keep your Frenzies and your Endurance charges up permanently with this item. This item also gives you free Aspect of the Cat. Aspect of the Cat on its own is good anyway, because it gives you some random avoidance, some crit chance. I think there's some attack speed or something like that on it. And it adds plus 2 seconds to the Cat's Agility, which is like the better of the two buffs that it kind of cycles through. So yeah, this thing is going to go nuts on Trickster. Trickster has plus 2 to Frenzy, so you could get plus 9 Frenzies with the Badge of the Brotherhood. You've got 9 Frenzies, 9 Endurance charges that you have up permanently. I feel like that sounds pretty juicy. And then there's a bit of evasion on it too, which means that you can benefit a little bit at least from the one Trickster node that gives you some energy shield based off your evasion. It's not a very high amount of evasion, but it's not nothing, and it could be worth it. But yeah, previously this was already at 4 to 5 divine. I'm thinking this thing is going to go 8 to 10. I think it's going to double in value just because Badge of the Brotherhood has such a insane interaction with it, and now the Badge of the Brotherhood is like, S tier item. This item gets elevated with it. Replica Hyrri's Ire. I love this item. This one's very rare. I only had one of these drop last league. I don't know if it's like actually obscenely rare or if I just got like unlucky with the drops, but it's a very good item. Gives you a massive amount of flat lightning damage with wand attacks and 30% spell suppress. So like this thing for wanders is pretty much best in slot for like any elemental wander build. It's just absolutely nuts. The reason why I think that this is going to be increased in value from last league is because I've seen a lot of people making POBs for that Power Siphon Locust Mines. And you can thank Jung Rowan for that. I looked at his one video, he's got 150k views on it. Now, he's not using this on his build. He's got like a endurance charge over time rare chest or whatever. But if you want more damage and you're like softcore minded and you don't care about clicking like, a war cry every once in a while for endurance charges, and you just want to go pure damage, this is the pure damage choice. So, 150k views on that video. I'm thinking, this thing is going to be absolutely nuts for Wander. If Wander really pops off, this unique could be worth a lot more than it was last league. Last league, it was sitting around 2 to 3 divines. I think I sold mine for, it was actually a little over 3 divines. I think 3.5, but I had a really good roll. And my speculative price here is 10 to 15 divines. Okay, I think this thing's going to go up quite a bit. Again, it's very rare. It almost never drops. And a lot of people don't play Heist. So it's going to have a supply crunch, without a doubt. Accumulator Wand. This is a bit of a spicy one. This one I put on here because it has endurance charge generation. Now, I made a whole video about the changes to the experimented items in the patch notes. I'll put a link to that below. But effectively, this item got a ton of crit chance. It's now got 9.5 base crit. And, that on top of the gain endurance charges and frenzy charges every 6 seconds. Endurance charge gaining is a lot more valuable than it was before. It's got a lot more crit now. Maybe a Sandstorm Visage build looks at this and thinks that this is absolutely nuts. I would say, without a shadow of a doubt, that, if you were to choose between 40% increased spell damage and gain 2 endurance, frenzy, and power charges every 6 seconds, you're going to pick the charge gains because that just helps you sustain all of your charges, right? Previous price for an eye level 86 was about 20 C is what I was selling them for. I think it's going to go up probably around 30 or 40 C. Could even be more. We'll see how much that goes up by. All right, Pneumatic Dagger. I love this item. I used this item on a build recently. I did a Animate Guardian, like a poison-based Animate Guardian, and just did like Ellie Buzzsaw and then stuck this on it. And it was pretty bad, but the item is actually good on a lot of other builds. I was just doing a really crappy meme build, but yeah, this is a fun item. I like it a lot. I put it on here because the base crit has been increased to 9.5%, which is significant. Also, we found out that Poison Berry Tincture doesn't have the all damage can poison anymore. That actually makes this dagger a lot more relevant. Melee skills got buffed. You know, you've got your Viper Strike. People were doing Viper Strike of the Mamba. Maybe you could do like some kind of big crit Viper Strike of the Mamba, like heavy LE damage stacking build with this Pneumatic Dagger that just like one-shots the entire screen. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be crazy though. Previous price was 30 to 40 C for an item level 86 plus. Looking at probably 50 to 60 C this league is what I would guess. I think it's going to be a lot better. It'll see more play with that base crit increase. All right, now we're getting to a little bit of a honorable mention section, but I wanted to talk about Enchanted Curios real quick. So first of all, what are they? At the end of a blueprint, sometimes you run into rare items, and they have like enchantments on them. Those are the Enchanted Curios. Enchantments, they can be from Tempering Orbs or from Tailoring Orbs normally, but in these heists, they actually drop on the item base themselves. And these item bases can drop at item level 86. So sometimes you come across some pretty nice ones. Like for example, last league I got a Val Regalia, and it had a like a defenses modifier on it, like increased level defenses or something like that, which is pretty nice. If you think about it, like somebody who's trying to craft that kind of base, they don't have to waste all their tailoring orbs spamming just to get that thing when you can already just buy it on there. So, you know, you can usually sell them for a couple of divines if you get it on like the really good base, because it'll save the buyer a lot more than a couple of divines in many cases. Now, a couple of interesting things here. Number one, I have the question of, are these new item bases going to be showing up in the Curios? If so, we can get early on in the league enchanted bases. That could be a really big deal and a lot of money. Another thing too to consider is that the items themselves that are in the Enchanted Curios, they're actually they have a lot higher weighting of good affixes. So you very often see things like plus to spells, plus levels of spells. I think even like higher tier mods, like multiple T1 mods. Sometimes you might even see something like a temple mod on there. There's weird stuff in those Curios. I always look, and I often see some like pretty nice gear, but like oftentimes it's not quite on the right base, or like one or two things is like messed up. But now with recombinators, you could look for these at the end. Look for a couple that have like maybe one or two really good mods, like a tier 1 or a tier 2 of something. Look for like the common good affixes like plus to spell gems and things like that, and just YOLO them together with other bases, like better bases, and see if you can get some of the like nasty T1 mods on there on other bases. So Enchanted Curios, possibly big moneymaker. This is a big question mark. Not sure if it's going to be good. If the new item bases are in here, that's GG. It's going to be absolute boatload of money. Have to look and wait and see on that. All right, and then some other honorable mentions. Replica Perfect Form is interesting. It's got Versatile Combatant on it, which Versatile Combatant was buffed this patch. It's a lot nicer than it was before. This has 20% chance to block attack damage on it. Now, most builds that are going Versatile Combatant, they're already in that area. But let's say for sake of argument, you were doing like an Ascendant build or something like that, or like a Witch, like a Necro block build or something, and you wanted to like go max block, and you wanted Versatile Combatant, this would be a nice way to get it, because you get 20% chance to block already. If you went Ascendant, you could even pick up the Glad 50% block from the Ascendant tree, get this, and then get some other block nodes on like the top half of the tree and not have to path down to the bottom half of the tree. So that could be kind of a niche thing. I don't think it's going to be meta, but I think that for the builds that want it, this could be really good. Replica Heat Shiver. This one gives you gain 1% of lightning damage as extra cold damage for 2% shock effect on the enemy. Now, with the new Warden, I don't know how this is going to work, but I seem to remember somebody saying that it keeps the highest shock, and then all of the rest of the shocks like stay at 2%. So I don't know if that means that like 50% shock effect is the cutoff like normal, or if that means that we can get above a 50% shock effect. If we can get above a 50% shock effect, this item becomes really interesting because then you're gaining like a significant amount of lightning damage as extra cold. So that's something else to keep in mind. Again, not really sure if it'll see any use. Might not, might be garbage, but it's something to think about. The last one we're going to look at here in honorable mentions is Eventuality Rod. It's got that +1 max power charges and max endurance charges. Again, endurance charges are absolutely nuts, so this thing it has the potential to go to the moon. Although I'm not really sure if it will, just because it's a war staff and, you know, you have to use a staff. If you're willing to use a staff, this thing looks pretty good. But then you're also losing your block, so I don't know if this is really worth using. But there might be some sort of charge stacking build that looks at this and thinks that this is really good. It also recently had the critical chance increased, so who knows? Maybe this thing is nuts. All right, that's it for the video. If you think that there's any other really interesting heist uniques that come out of the Curios, you think they're OP or they're going to the moon, let me know. Did I miss anything? Otherwise, if you like the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. See you next time. Peace.